The massive crystal chambers of the Galactic Council floated high above Nexus Prime. Inside the gleaming halls, representatives from 12 of the most powerful species in the galaxy sat around a circular table made of pure diamond. The air hummed, with tension and barely controlled anger. High Counselor Vextar of the Draknari Empire rose from his chair. His red scales caught the light from the crystal walls as his yellow eyes burned with rage. The reptilian alien was over 3 meters, tall, and his presence commanded respect from every creature in the room. When he spoke, his voice carried the authority of someone who had conquered dozens of worlds. "These humans are becoming a problem," Vextar said, his words echoing through the chamber. "They dare to expand into territories that belong to us. In just one solar cycle, they have built colonies on 17 different worlds, 17 worlds that should have been ours." Around the table, other council members nodded in agreement. Counselor Thys of the Ethereal Collective shimmered like flowing water as she leaned forward. Her species had existed for over 10,000 years and had seen many young races rise and fall. Her voice sounded like wind through crystal caves when she spoke. "The humans are nothing more than children playing with technology they barely understand," she said with contempt. "Their ships are crude. Their weapons are primitive. Yet they spread across the galaxy like some kind of disease. They take resources that rightfully belong to civilized species." War Marshal Corinth of the Hegemony Forces slammed his armored fist on the table. The sound rang through the chamber like a bell. His species had been warriors for over 5,000 years, and they had never lost a major battle. His forearms were covered in scars from countless victories, and his black eyes held no mercy for enemies. "The humans showed no respect when we first contacted them," Corinth growled. "We offered them membership in our alliance. We offered to guide their development and teach them proper galactic law. They refused us. They said they would make their own path among the stars." Elder Zephys of the Ancient Collective spoke next. His species was the oldest in the galaxy, having achieved spaceflight when most other races were still primitive animals. His voice was thin and cold like winter wind. 50 years ago, the humans were nothing. They had barely learned to travel between stars. Their fastest ships took months to cross distances that our vessels cover in days. We thought they would remain trapped in their small corner of space forever. "But they did not stay trapped," said Counselor Rix of the Trade Federation. His insect-like features clicked with annoyance as he spoke. "Their technology improved faster than our analysts predicted. They began building better ships, better weapons, better colonies. Now they compete with our merchant fleets for trade, routes, and resources." High Counselor Vextar looked around the table at his fellow council members. Each one represented billions of citizens from advanced civilizations. Together, their combined fleets controlled over half the galaxy. They had maintained peace and order for thousands of years by ensuring that younger species knew their place in the galactic hierarchy. "The humans have forgotten that they are newcomers," Vextar continued. "They act as if they have the right to take whatever they want from space. They ignore our territorial claims. They refuse to follow established trade laws. They even dare to establish military bases in neutral zones." Counselor Thys nodded slowly. "Our intelligence reports indicate that human colonies now exist in over 200 star systems. They are reproducing at an alarming rate and spreading faster than any species we have encountered before. If we do not act soon, they will become too numerous to control." War Marshal Corinth stood up, his armor gleaming in the crystal light. "I have studied human military capabilities. Their tactics are chaotic and unpredictable. They lack proper discipline and organization. Their ships are built for speed rather than firepower. A single engagement with our elite Vanguard fleet would crush their military completely." The elite Vanguard fleet was the pride of the Galactic Council. It consisted of 500 of the most advanced warships in the galaxy. Each vessel was crewed by experienced warriors from different member species. The fleet had never been defeated in battle and had conquered over 30 different civilizations throughout galactic history. Elder Zephys raised one thin hand. "Are we certain that military action is necessary? Perhaps economic pressure would be sufficient to bring the humans into line." "Economic pressure has already failed," replied Counselor Rix. "We have imposed trade restrictions and increased tariffs on human goods. They simply found new markets and developed alternative supply chains. Some of our own member species have even begun trading with humans despite our prohibitions." High Counselor Vextar felt his anger growing. The very idea that some council member species would betray their oaths by dealing with the humans was insulting beyond belief. The Galactic Council had brought peace and prosperity to the galaxy for millennia. Now these upstart humans threatened to disrupt the natural order of things. "The humans must learn their place," Vextar declared. "We have been patient long enough. We have given them opportunities to join our civilization peacefully. They have rejected our generous offers and chosen defiance instead." War Marshal Corinth activated a holographic display above the table. The image showed detailed intelligence about human military forces. Red dots marked the locations of human fleets throughout their territory. Blue dots showed the positions of Galactic Council forces nearby. "Our latest intelligence indicates that the humans can field approximately 200 combat vessels of their newest design," Corinth explained. "These ships are fast but lightly armored. Their crews are brave, but inexperienced in large-scale warfare. Against our elite Vanguard fleet, they would be completely outmatched." The holographic display zoomed in on a neutral star system called Kepler 442. The system contained several uninhabited planets and had been used for diplomatic meetings between different species for centuries. It would be the perfect location for a demonstration of galactic power. "I propose we send the humans a formal challenge," War Marshal Corinth continued. "We will demand that they meet our elite Vanguard fleet at Kepler 442 for a decisive battle. If they accept, we will destroy their military completely and force them to submit to proper galactic authority. If they refuse, we will begin systematic destruction of their colonies until they have no choice but to surrender." Counselor Thiss shimmered with approval. A single overwhelming victory would send a clear message to any other young species that might consider challenging our authority. The humans would serve as an example for future generations. The vote was swift and unanimous. All 12 council members agreed that the time for patience had ended. The humans would be taught a lesson in humility that would echo throughout the galaxy for centuries to come. High Counselor Vextar felt satisfied as the council session ended. Soon the natural order would be restored, and the galaxy would remember why the Galactic Council ruled among the stars. On distant Earth, Admiral Park Dae-ho was working late in his office at Fleet Command when the diplomatic message arrived. The communication bore the official seals of the Galactic Council and was delivered through standard diplomatic channels. Park read the message twice before fully understanding its contents. The Galactic Council was formally challenging humanity to meet their elite Vanguard fleet in battle at Kepler 442. The humans had 30 days to respond. If they refused, the Council threatened to begin destroying human colonies one by one until humanity surrendered completely. Admiral Park leaned back in his chair and stared out his window at the stars. He had spent his entire career preparing for this moment, though he had hoped it would never come. The intelligence reports on his desk made the situation clear. The elite Vanguard fleet consisted of 500 advanced warships crewed by the best warriors in the galaxy. Against them, humanity could field perhaps 200 vessels of their newest class. Any reasonable analysis suggested that humanity was about to face complete annihilation. The odds were more than 2-to-1 against them, and those odds did not account for the superior technology and experience of their enemies. Captain Kim Min-ho knocked on the office door and entered when Park called for him to come in. The younger officer had been Park's aide for 3 years and had never seen his commander look so serious. "Sir, the communication staff is waiting for your response to the Galactic Council message," Kim said quietly. "What should I tell them?" "Admiral." Park stood up and walked to the large window that looked out over the shipyards of Luna Station. Hundreds of human vessels were visible in the distance, some under construction, and others preparing for missions to distant star systems. Each ship represented years of human effort and innovation. Park thought about the colonies that depended on Earth for protection. He thought about the families living on distant worlds who trusted the military to keep them safe. He thought about the future of his species and what would happen if humanity submitted to the Galactic Council without a fight. "Send word to all human fleets," Park finally said, his voice calm and determined. "Tell them we have received a formal challenge from the Galactic Council. Tell them we have 30 days to prepare for the shipyards of Luna Station had never been busier. Chief Engineer Lee Soo-jin walked through the massive construction bays where human warships were being prepared for battle. Sparks flew from welding torches as crews worked around the clock to install new weapons and defensive systems. The sound of hammering and drilling echoed through the metal corridors. Lee Soo-jin was one of the best engineers in the human fleet. She had designed many of the systems that made human ships different from alien vessels. While other species built their ships for beauty and ceremony, humans built theirs for one purpose only: to survive in combat and destroy their enemies. "How are the new targeting systems coming along?" she asked technical specialist Choi Young-woo. The young man was working on a control panel that looked nothing like the elegant displays found on alien ships. Instead of smooth curves and glowing lights, human interfaces were covered with switches, buttons, and backup systems. "Integration is at 98% efficiency," Choi reported. "The neural interfaces are responding perfectly to pilot commands. Response time is down to just 2 milliseconds from thought to action." Lee Soo-jin nodded with satisfaction. This was humanity's greatest advantage over their alien enemies. While alien fleets relied on traditional command structures where orders had to travel from admirals to captains to crew members, human ships used direct neural connections between pilots and their vessels. A human pilot could think a command and have their ship respond almost instantly. The neural interface technology had been developed after studying the brains of human fighter pilots. Scientists discovered that the best pilots seemed to merge mentally with their aircraft during combat. They could react to threats and opportunities faster than conscious thought would allow. The neural interfaces simply made this natural ability even stronger. In another section of Luna Station, weapons expert Dr. Kang Hyun-woo was working on a different kind of preparation. His laboratory was filled with detailed files about every alien species in the Galactic Council. Each file contained information about alien biology, psychology, and military tactics. "The Draknari have thick scales that can resist most energy weapons," Dr. Kang explained to his research team. "But their scales are designed to deflect heat and radiation. Physical impact weapons should be much more effective against them." His assistant, Dr. Nam Subin, pulled up holographic displays showing alien ship designs. "The Ethereal Collective builds their vessels using crystalline structures that are very beautiful, but also very brittle. A few well-placed kinetic strikes could shatter their entire hull." Dr. Kang had spent years studying alien military doctrine. He had discovered something that surprised him. Most alien species had been fighting the same way for thousands of years. Their tactics were predictable because they followed ancient traditions and formal rules of warfare. They fought like generals playing chess, carefully, methodically, and according to established patterns. Humans fought like wild animals. They were unpredictable, aggressive, and willing to try tactics that other species would consider insane or dishonorable. This difference in thinking could be turned into a weapon if used properly. On the training grounds of Mars Military Academy, Colonel Yoon Ji-hae was drilling her Marines in zero-gravity combat. These soldiers would serve as boarding parties if the opportunity arose during the battle. The idea of boarding enemy ships was something that most alien species had abandoned centuries ago. They considered it too dangerous and unpredictable. "Remember your training," Colonel Yoon shouted to her troops as they practiced moving through mock corridors in zero gravity. "Alien ships are not designed for internal combat. Their crews have no experience fighting in their own corridors. Use that advantage. Move fast, hit hard, and never give them time to organize a defense." The Marines wore armor that was much different from the ceremonial uniforms worn by alien military forces. Human combat armor was designed to be functional rather than impressive. It was covered with weapons, tools, and emergency supplies. Every piece of equipment had been tested in real combat situations. Sergeant Park Hye-jin led one of the Marine squads through a training exercise. Her team had to fight their way through a mock alien ship while dealing with different gravity levels, atmospheric conditions, and hostile defenders. The exercise was designed to be almost impossible to complete successfully. The aliens expect us to fight ship-to-ship battles at long range, Sergeant Park explained to her squad. They have never faced boarding parties before. When we get inside their ships, they will panic. Panic makes people make mistakes. We will use their mistakes against them. Meanwhile, Admiral Song Mi-young was coordinating with civilian populations throughout human space. Unlike other species, humans did not separate their military forces from their civilian population during wartime. Every human citizen was considered part of the war effort. Merchant ship captains were being given new orders. Their cargo vessels were being secretly converted into support ships that could resupply military vessels during battle. Civilian engineers were working to develop new weapons and defensive systems. Even children in schools were being taught how to help with war production. The aliens think they are fighting our military, Admiral Song explained to a group of civilian leaders. They have no idea that they are actually fighting our entire species. Every human will contribute to this battle in some way. The conversion of civilian ships was happening in secret shipyards throughout human space. Cargo vessels were being fitted with hidden weapons bays. Passenger ships were being modified to carry fighter craft. Even small personal spacecraft were being equipped with sensors and communication equipment to serve as scouts. Captain Lim Jae-sung commanded a converted merchant vessel called the Trader's Dream. His ship looked like an ordinary cargo hauler from the outside, but hidden inside its cargo bays were missile launchers and fighter squadrons. Ships like his would provide surprise support during the battle. The aliens will focus their attacks on our obvious warships, Captain Lim told his crew. They will ignore vessels that look like harmless merchants. When the battle begins, we will show them how wrong they are. As the deadline approached, Admiral Park Dae-ho stood on the observation deck of Luna Station, watching his fleet assemble. The human ships looked very different from the elegant vessels preferred by alien species. Human warships were covered with armor plating, weapon systems, and sensor arrays. They looked like predators built for killing rather than ceremonial parade vessels. Each ship in the human fleet had been tested in real combat against pirates, hostile aliens, and other threats. Their crews were veterans who had survived battles, where defeat meant death. They were not the pampered soldiers of established galactic powers who fought according to ancient rules and traditions. Commander Han Tai-min approached Admiral Park with the final status reports. All ships report ready for departure, sir. Fleet strength is 212 vessels, including support ships. Admiral Park nodded slowly. The math was simple and brutal. The elite Vanguard fleet had 500 ships crewed by experienced warriors from 12 different species. The human fleet was outnumbered more than 2-to-1 by enemies with superior technology and thousands of years of military experience. In any conventional analysis, humanity was about to be completely destroyed. Military analysts throughout the galaxy would have predicted total human defeat within hours of the battle beginning. But Admiral Park was not thinking about conventional military analysis. Signal all ships to begin final preparations, he ordered. We depart for Kepler 442 in 6 hours. As the human fleet prepared to leave for what would likely be their final battle, Admiral Park thought about the reports he had been reading. The Galactic Council expected to fight a traditional military engagement. They planned to use their superior numbers and firepower to overwhelm human forces quickly and efficiently. They had no idea what humanity was really capable of when fighting for survival. They were about to learn why humans had survived and thrived on one of the most dangerous planets in the galaxy. They were about to discover what happened when predators were backed into a corner with no escape. The elite Vanguard fleet was confident in their coming victory. They had every reason to be confident based on conventional military thinking. But humans had never been conventional, and they had no intention of starting now. Admiral Park smiled grimly as he watched his fleet prepare for departure. The aliens wanted to teach humanity a lesson about their place in the galaxy. Instead, they were about to receive an education in what it meant to threaten the survival of the human species. The lesson would be written in fire and blood among the stars of Kepler 442. The elite Vanguard fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation above the Kepler 442 system. 500 alien warships appeared in the darkness like gleaming jewels arranged in precise geometric patterns. Each vessel was a masterpiece of alien engineering, designed to inspire awe in enemies and demonstrate the technological superiority of galactic civilization. War Marshal Corinth stood on the bridge of his flagship, the massive Draknari dreadnought Eternal Dominance. The ship was over 2 kilometers long and bristled with weapons powerful enough to destroy planets. Through the transparent metal viewports, he could see the rest of his fleet stretching out in all directions like a vast city floating in space. "Magnificent," Corinth said to his tactical officers. "The humans will see this display of power and realize how foolish their defiance has been. Perhaps they will surrender without forcing us to destroy them completely." The alien fleet had been arranged according to military traditions that were thousands of years old. Heavy battleships formed the center of the formation, while smaller cruisers and destroyers took positions on the flanks. Support vessels remained safely in the rear, where they could provide assistance without risking damage in combat. "Sir, we are detecting human ships approaching from the inner system," reported Lieutenant Commander Thex, the Draknari sensor specialist. "Their formation appears to be completely chaotic. No organization or discipline whatsoever." Corinth activated his tactical display and studied the approaching human fleet. What he saw confirmed his expectations about human military capabilities. Instead of the precise formations favored by professional military forces, the human ships seemed to be moving in random patterns. Some vessels were accelerating while others maintained steady courses. There was no apparent coordination between different groups of ships. "Look at them," Corinth said with contempt. "They approach battle like a mob of angry primitives rather than trained soldiers. This will be even easier than our analyst predicted." Counselor Theiss observed the human fleet from her command ship, a crystalline vessel that looked more like a work of art than a military weapon. Her species had been studying warfare for over 10,000 years and had developed theories about military tactics that were taught at academies throughout the galaxy. "Their approach is completely wrong according to all established military doctrine," she told her staff officers. "They are exposing their flanks to our heavy weapons. They have no reserves positioned for tactical flexibility. Their commanders must be either incompetent or insane." What the aliens saw as chaos and incompetence was actually humanity's greatest tactical innovation. Each human ship operated as an independent hunter, rather than part of a rigid formation. The captains had been given general objectives but were free to adapt their tactics based on changing battlefield conditions. This flexibility allowed human forces to respond to threats and opportunities much faster than traditional command structures would permit. Admiral Park Deho stood on the bridge of his flagship Soul's Pride and watched the alien fleet through his tactical displays. The enemy formation was exactly what human analysts had predicted. The aliens were positioning themselves according to classical military doctrine that emphasized firepower concentration and defensive positioning. "They are doing exactly what our simulation said they would do," Admiral Park told his staff officers. "Signal all ships to begin Hunter Protocol. Let them see what happens when predators decide to hunt." The Hunter Protocol was a combat doctrine that had been developed after studying how pack animals hunted much larger prey. Instead of trying to match the enemy's strength directly, human ships would work together to isolate and destroy individual targets while avoiding direct confrontation with the main enemy force. Captain Kim Min-ho watched the tactical displays with growing excitement. "Sir, all ships are reporting ready for combat operations. Engineering teams confirm that all neural interface systems are functioning at maximum efficiency." Admiral Park nodded and opened fleet-wide communications. His voice would reach every human ship in the battle zone simultaneously through quantum-encrypted channels that the aliens could not intercept or jam. "Attention all vessels. Today we face an enemy that believes they are superior to humanity. They think their technology and experience make them invincible. They are about to learn that survival is not about having the best weapons or the most ships. Survival is about refusing to give up no matter what the odds against you." The elite Vanguard fleet opened fire first. Hundreds of energy weapons created brilliant streams of destructive force that lit up the darkness of space. The aliens were using concentrated firepower tactics designed to overwhelm human defensive systems through sheer volume of attacks. Several human ships took direct hits, from the alien weapons. Their energy shields flared and collapsed under the assault. Explosions erupted along their hulls as armor plating was burned away by enemy fire. According to conventional military thinking, these damaged vessels should have withdrawn from combat to avoid complete destruction. Instead, the human ships did something that shocked every alien commander in the fleet. The damaged vessels accelerated directly toward the enemy formation. Ships that were trailing atmosphere and debris from their wounds drove straight into the teeth of the alien defensive fire. Impossible, breathed Counselor Thiss as she watched her tactical screens. Those ships are severely damaged. Their crews should be trying to escape. Why are they charging directly into our weapons range? War Marshal Corinth felt the first stirring of unease as he observed human tactics. Perhaps their communications systems have been damaged and they cannot coordinate a proper withdrawal, he suggested to his staff. But the humans were not making mistakes or suffering from communication failures. They were executing a battle plan that no alien species had ever encountered before. While enemy forces focused their firepower on long-range bombardment, human ships were designed for close-quarters combat, where their advantages would become apparent. The first alien vessel to fall was a hegemony cruiser that found itself surrounded by 3 human destroyers. Captain Namjiwan commanded the lead destroyer Incheon's Fury, as her ship closed to point-blank range with the enemy vessel. Instead of the energy weapons that aliens expected, her ship fired something that galactic military forces had not seen. In combat for over 1,000 years, solid projectiles launched at incredible speed struck the alien cruiser with devastating effect. The hegemony shields were designed to deflect energy beams and plasma bolts, but they were useless against physical matter traveling at a significant fraction of light speed. The projectiles punched through the alien hull like bullets through paper. What kind of primitive weapons are these? Demanded the hegemony captain as his ship began to break apart under the kinetic bombardment. No civilized species uses solid projectiles in space combat, but the humans had turned the aliens' assumption about primitive weapons into a deadly advantage. While energy weapons could be deflected by shields and armor designed to handle them, kinetic weapons struck with the full force of their mass and velocity. A piece of metal moving at relativistic speed carried more destructive power than most energy weapons. The human destroyers did not stop with destroying the enemy cruiser. As the alien vessel exploded, they immediately turned toward new targets. Their neural interface systems allowed them to coordinate attacks with inhuman precision and speed. What looked like chaos to alien observers was actually a carefully orchestrated dance of destruction. "Sir, we are losing ships faster than our tactical computers can track," reported Lieutenant Commander Thex with growing alarm. The human vessels are not fighting according to any known military doctrine. They seem to be operating as individual predators rather than organized military units. War Marshal Corinth watched his formation begin to dissolve as human ships struck at weak points and isolated targets throughout the alien fleet. Ships that should have been easily destroyed by concentrated alien firepower were somehow surviving and continuing to fight. Human vessels with missing sections and failing systems kept attacking with desperate fury. "Order all ships to maintain formation," Corinth commanded. "Do not allow them to draw us into individual engagements. Use our superior firepower to destroy them at long range." But maintaining formation against human tactics was like trying to hold a rigid battle line against a swarm of attacking hornets. The human ships were too fast and too unpredictable. They struck at multiple points simultaneously, forcing alien commanders to split their attention and firepower. Captain Park Hae-jin commanded the destroyer Busan's Hammer when a Draknari heavy weapons platform targeted her ship with a plasma cannon, capable of destroying most vessels with a single shot. Instead of trying to avoid the attack, she ordered her crew to redirect all power to engines and charge directly at the enemy position. The plasma bolt struck her ship and tore through the port side, killing half her crew and venting atmosphere into space. By all logic, her vessel should have been destroyed completely. Instead, Captain Park used the explosion's force to accelerate even faster toward her target. "Ma'am, we are losing structural integrity," reported her chief engineer over the ship's communication says. As the battle continued to rage across the Kepler 442 system, the elite Vanguard fleet's overwhelming numerical advantage began to feel less decisive than War Marshal Corinth had expected. Human ships that should have been destroyed hours ago continued to fight with damaged systems and reduced crews. Every time the aliens thought they had eliminated a threat, another human vessel would emerge from the wreckage to continue the attack. Captain Nam Ji-wan commanded the destroyer Incheon's fury when a massive Draknari plasma cannon tore completely through her ship's port side. The blast vented atmosphere from 12 decks and killed over half her crew instantly. Emergency alarms screamed throughout the vessel as secondary explosions erupted in the engine compartments. "Captain, we have lost main power to all weapons systems," reported her chief engineer, Petty Officer Bae Sumin, his voice barely audible over the sound of escaping air and failing machinery. "Hull breaches are spreading faster than our repair teams can contain them. We need to evacuate immediately." Instead of ordering her surviving crew to abandon ship, Captain Nam made a decision that would have seemed insane to any alien commander. "Redirect all remaining power from life support to engines and targeting systems," she ordered. "Set course for that Draknari heavy cruiser at bearing 27 Mark IV. "Ma'am, that will leave us with no atmosphere or artificial gravity," Bae protested. "The crew will not survive more than a few minutes in those conditions." "Then we better make those few minutes count," Captain Nam replied, as she sealed her combat suit and prepared for vacuum operations. "All hands, prepare for emergency atmospheric venting. We are going to ram that cruiser and take it with us." The sight of the human destroyer accelerating toward them with its hull trailing debris and atmosphere horrified the Draknari crew. They had been taught that space combat was conducted by professional military forces following established rules and procedures. Ships that were fatally damaged were supposed to surrender or withdraw from battle, not launch suicidal attacks against superior opponents. "Impossible," gasped the Draknari captain as he watched the human vessel approach. "Their ship is falling apart. Why do they not retreat and save their lives?" The answer was something that no alien species in the Galactic Council truly understood about humanity. Humans had evolved on a planet where survival often depended on fighting predators much larger and stronger than themselves. They had learned that sometimes the only way to survive was to make the cost of killing them too high for their enemies to accept. Captain Nam's destroyer struck the Draknari cruiser at full speed, just as its weapons finally tore the human ship completely apart. The explosion consumed both vessels in a brilliant flash that could be seen throughout the battle zone. But the psychological impact on the alien fleet was far greater than the physical damage. These humans did not fight like civilized beings following the rules of warfare. They fought like wild animals backed into a corner with no escape. They would rather die taking their enemies with them than accept defeat and surrender. Across the battlefield, similar scenes of desperate human courage were unfolding. Boarding. Pods launched from damaged human vessels punched through alien hulls to deliver marine assault teams directly into enemy ships. Colonel Yoon Ji-hai led one such assault on an ethereal collective battleship, her troops fighting through corridors designed for beings with completely different physiology. The aliens had not faced boarding actions in over 2,000 years. Their ships were designed for external combat only, with no provisions for internal fighting. Their crews had no training for corridor-to-corridor combat, and their weapons were optimized for ship-to-ship engagements rather than close quarters. Battle. "Secure this section and advance to the next bulkhead," Colonel Yoon ordered her Marines as they moved through the crystalline passages of the alien vessel. The ethereal crew they encountered seemed completely bewildered by the concept of fighting. Inside their own ship, Sergeant Park Hee-jin kicked down a door leading to what appeared to be the ship's command center. Inside, several ethereal officers were trying to coordinate their vessel's defense, but they had no experience dealing with armed intruders moving through their corridors. "Surrender your ship and your crew will not be harmed," Sergeant Park announced, in the universal trade language used throughout the galaxy. "Continue to resist and we will take it by force." The ethereal captain looked at the human soldiers with expressions of complete shock. In over 10,000 years of galactic warfare, no enemy had ever demanded the surrender of an ethereal vessel from inside their own command center. The concept was so alien to their military experience that they did not know how to respond. "This is impossible," the captain whispered. How did you penetrate our defenses? How are you fighting inside our ship? Your defenses were designed to stop other ships, not individual soldiers, Sergeant Park explained as her Marines secured the command center. Your tactics assume that combat happens between fleets in space, not between crews inside vessels. You never prepared for enemies who would board your ships and fight you face to face. The capture of the ethereal battleship sent shockwaves through the alien fleet. Not only were the humans refusing to fight according to established military doctrine, they were successfully using tactics that galactic military forces had abandoned as obsolete centuries ago. High Counselor Vextar received reports of the boarding action on his command ship with growing disbelief. How many human ships have been captured by boarding parties? He demanded from his intelligence officers. Sir, the humans are not capturing our vessels, replied his aide with confusion. They are capturing our vessels from us. Their soldiers are taking control of our ships from the inside. The very idea seemed impossible to Vextar. Boarding actions were something that primitive pirates might attempt against merchant vessels, not a tactic used by military forces against warships. The fact that humans were successfully employing such methods against the elite Vanguard fleet was deeply disturbing. But the humans were not finished revealing their tactical innovations. Ships that had been hanging back from the main battle suddenly revealed themselves as converted civilian vessels, armed with hidden weapons. Merchant ships opened cargo bays to launch fighter squadrons. Passenger liners deployed missile batteries. From concealed compartments, Captain Lim Jae-sung commanded one such vessel, the converted cargo hauler Trader's Dream. His ship had looked like an ordinary merchant vessel until the moment he opened his hidden weapons bays and began launching guided missiles at surprised alien cruisers. Target that hegemony destroyer. At bearing 18 Mark 6, he ordered his gunners. They still think we are a harmless cargo ship. Let us show them how wrong they are. The aliens watched in horror as dozens of vessels they had dismissed as non-combatants suddenly revealed themselves as armed warships. Not only were the humans fighting with their military fleet, they were fighting with their entire civilization. Every human ship in the system, regardless of its apparent purpose, was part of the war effort. War Marshal Corinth felt panic beginning to spread through his fleet commanders as reports flooded in from across the battle zone. Ships were falling, faster than his tactical computers could track. Vessels that should have been easy victories were destroying alien cruisers and battleships with impossible weapons and suicidal tactics. Sir, we have lost over 100 ships, reported his chief tactical officer with barely controlled fear. The humans have lost approximately half their fleet, but they are still fighting with the same intensity as when the battle began. Corinth studied his tactical displays with growing unease. The numbers were still in the elite Vanguard fleet's favor, but the trend was deeply troubling. Human losses were not reducing their combat effectiveness the way alien casualties were affecting his own forces. Order all remaining ships to concentrate fire on their flagship, Corinth commanded. If we can destroy their command vessel, their coordination will collapse and we can finish them systematically. But the humans had anticipated this tactic. Admiral Park Dae-ho had distributed command authority throughout his fleet, using their neural interface networks. The destruction of any individual ship, including his own flagship, would not significantly impact human tactical coordination. Sir, the aliens are concentrating their fire on our position, reported Commander Han Tai-min, as energy bolts began striking Seoul's Pride with increasing frequency. Should we withdraw to a safer position? Admiral Park watched his tactical displays as the alien fleet committed more and more ships to destroying his flagship. While they focused their attention on him, other human vessels were free to strike at targets throughout the alien formation. Maintain current course and continue coordinating fleet operations, Park ordered calmly. Let them waste their firepower trying to kill one ship while our hunters tear apart their formations. The Seoul's Pride shuddered under repeated hits from alien weapons, but Admiral Park remained at his post directing the battle even as his ship began to break apart around him. His determination to fight to the end, regardless of personal cost, epitomized everything that made human warfare so terrifying to their enemies. As the fourth hour of battle began, the elite Vanguard fleet continued to lose ships at an alarming rate, Panic began to spread through the alien command structure like a disease. This was not how galactic warfare was supposed to function. Defeated fleets were supposed to recognize their hopeless situation and either withdraw to fight another day or surrender to preserve their crew's lives. The humans were doing neither. They were fighting harder as their losses mounted, as if defeat made them more dangerous rather than weaker. Every human ship that was destroyed seemed to inspire the survivors to fight with even greater fury and determination. High Counselor Vextar opened emergency communications to all remaining ships in his fleet. His voice carried barely controlled fear as he spoke to his scattered commanders. All vessels implement Protocol 7 immediately. Begin withdrawal to hyperspace jump points. We will regroup and develop new tactics to deal with these humans. But withdrawal proved to be as dangerous as continued engagement. Human ships had positioned themselves to cut off escape routes throughout the battle zone. Fast human interceptors and converted civilian vessels swarmed around alien ships trying to flee, attacking them like predators pursuing wounded prey. Commander, Park Hyojin led a squadron of modified human fighters as they pursued a group of hegemony cruisers, attempting to reach the edge of the system. Her small ships moved with deadly precision, striking at engine systems and weapons arrays to disable the larger vessels without destroying them completely. Target their hyperspace drives, she ordered her pilots over the squadron communication network. Do not let them escape to warn the Galactic Council about our true capabilities. Every alien who leaves this system alive becomes intelligence that our enemies can use against us. The human fighters swarmed over the fleeing cruisers like angry hornets attacking much larger creatures. Their weapons were not powerful enough to destroy the alien ships quickly, but they could inflict critical damage to propulsion and navigation systems. The cruisers found themselves trapped in normal space, unable to jump to hyperspace, and too damaged to outrun their pursuers. War Marshal Corinth watched his retreat dissolve into chaos as human forces pursued his fleeing ships throughout the star system. This was another violation of accepted military practice that shocked alien commanders. Civilized species allowed defeated enemies to withdraw after a battle was decided. It was considered barbaric to pursue retreating forces and destroy them completely. But humans did not follow civilized rules of warfare. They fought for total victory or total destruction with no middle ground for negotiation or mercy. They understood that enemies who escaped today would return with larger forces and better preparation tomorrow. On the bridge of his flagship Eternal Dominance, War Marshal Corinth made a decision that would have horrified the Galactic Council if they had known about it. Activate the World Killer weapon, he commanded his weapons officer with grim determination. The World Killer was the Draknari Empire's most closely guarded secret, a weapon of such terrible power that it had only been used once in galactic history. The device was capable of triggering fusion reactions within a star, causing it to go nova and destroy everything within several light years of the explosion. 2,000 years ago, the World Killer had been used to eliminate a rebellious species that had refused to submit to Draknari authority. The entire race had been wiped out along with their star system, serving as an example to other potential rebels throughout the galaxy. Now Corinth intended to use the same weapon on Kepler 442's star. The resulting nova would eliminate both the human fleet and his own remaining forces in one massive explosion. It would be mutual annihilation, but at least the humans would be prevented from returning to their colonies with knowledge of how to defeat galactic military forces. Sir, activating the World Killer will destroy our own fleet as well as theirs, protested his tactical officer with obvious fear. There will be no survivors to report our victory to the Galactic Council. Better that both fleets die here than allow these humans to spread their infection throughout the galaxy, Corinth replied coldly. They have shown that they cannot be defeated by conventional military force. If we cannot conquer them, then we must ensure that they cannot threaten galactic civilization. The massive weapon began its charging sequence, drawing power from the Dreadnought's fusion reactors and building up the energy needed to trigger a stellar collapse. The process would take nearly an hour to complete, but once activated, nothing in the galaxy could stop the World Killer from fulfilling its terrible purpose. But Admiral Park Dae-ho had been monitoring all alien communications through captured vessels and intercepted transmissions. The moment the World Killer began charging, sensors throughout the human fleet detected the massive energy buildup aboard the Draknari flagship. Dr. Kang Hyun-woo, working frantically aboard the damaged research vessel Scientific Progress, analyzed the energy readings and realized what the aliens were attempting. "Admiral, they are preparing to detonate the system's star," he reported over the fleet communication network. "If that weapon reaches full charge, everyone in this system will die." Admiral Park felt a cold fury settle over him as he understood the aliens' final gambit. They could not defeat humanity in honest combat, so they intended to commit murder-suicide on a scale that would be visible from other star systems. Rather than accept defeat, they would destroy an entire solar system and everyone in it. "All ships, this is Admiral Park," he announced over the fleet-wide communication system. "The enemy has activated a weapon that will kill everyone in this system within the hour. They cannot defeat us in battle, so they intend to take us with them into death." He paused for a moment, looking out at the stars that had witnessed so much human blood being shed in defense of their species' right to exist among the galaxies. "I will not allow these." The explosion of the Eternal Dominance marked the end of the Battle of Kepler 442, though the silence that followed was more terrifying than the violence that had preceded it. Where once 500 alien warships had dominated the star system, with their technological superiority, now only debris and radiation remained floating in the cosmic void. The World Killer weapon had never fired its devastating payload at the system's star. Instead, its catastrophic failure had consumed the Draknari flagship and every vessel within 1,000 kilometers of the explosion. The feedback energy release had been so massive that it created a temporary artificial nebula visible from nearby star systems. Admiral Park Dae-ho's flagship Seoul's Pride had been caught at the edge of the explosion. The ship's hull was cracked along multiple stress points and most of its systems had failed, but somehow the vessel had survived the blast that claimed the alien dreadnought. Admiral Park himself had been killed when the bridge's main display exploded during the final assault, but his sacrifice had ensured that the human fleet completed its mission. In the aftermath of the battle, 17 human ships remained operational out of the original fleet of 212 vessels. These survivors drifted through the wreckage of both fleets, searching for other ships that might still have living crews aboard. The human losses had been staggering, but they had achieved something that no species in galactic history had ever accomplished. They had completely annihilated the elite Vanguard fleet without allowing a single enemy vessel to escape and report what had happened. Captain Kim Min-ho, now the senior surviving officer of the human fleet, stood on the damaged bridge of the cruiser Busan's Hammer and surveyed the tactical displays showing the battle's aftermath. The numbers were almost impossible to believe. Over 90% of the human fleet had been destroyed, along with thousands of humanity's finest soldiers and officers. "Sir, we are receiving distress signals from several human vessels," reported Communications Officer Lee Tae-wook. "The destroyer Incheon's Fury is requesting immediate medical assistance. The research vessel Scientific Progress has lost life support and needs emergency evacuation." Captain Kim nodded grimly as he coordinated rescue operations for the surviving human ships. The victory had come at a price that would leave scars on humanity for generations to come. Entire families had been wiped out when their members served together on the same vessels. Colonies throughout human space would mourn the loss of their defenders, but those sacrifices had purchased something invaluable for humanity's future. The elite Vanguard fleet had been the Galactic Council's ultimate weapon, their final solution for dealing with troublesome younger species. Its complete destruction would send shockwaves throughout galactic civilization, though the Council would never learn the truth about what had happened at Kepler 442. Lieutenant Commander Han Tae-min, working frantically aboard the damaged communications ship Seoul's Voice, managed to restore long-range communication systems just long enough to send a coded message back to Earth. The transmission contained complete records of the battle, including tactical analyses of alien weapons and ship designs, captured during the fighting. "Message transmitted successfully, sir," he reported to Captain Kim over the fleet communication network. "Earth Command will know what happened here and what it cost us to achieve victory." The few alien vessels that had managed to escape the initial convergence on the Eternal Dominance had not survived long in the radiation-filled aftermath of the World Killer's destruction. Those ships that were not completely destroyed had suffered catastrophic system failures that left their crews dead or dying in the cold vacuum of space. Commander Park Hyejin led a salvage team aboard the drifting hulk of a hegemony battleship, searching for intelligence information and possible survivors. What she found in the alien ship's databanks would prove invaluable for understanding galactic military capabilities and political structures. "Sir, you need to see this," she reported to Captain Kim after accessing the alien computer systems. "These files contain detailed information about Galactic Council military forces, including fleet dispositions and defensive strategies for their core worlds. The intelligence gathered from captured alien vessels would give humanity unprecedented insights into their enemies' capabilities and weaknesses. More importantly, it would help human military planners prepare for the inevitable day when the Galactic Council discovered that their elite vanguard fleet had been completely destroyed. But that day of reckoning was still far in the future. The official galactic communication networks carried no reports of the battle's outcome. As far as the Galactic Council knew, their fleet had achieved a complete victory over the troublesome humans and eliminated the threat to galactic order. High Counselor Vextar sat in his crystal chambers on Nexus Prime, reviewing routine administrative reports from throughout the galaxy. He had been expecting a triumphant message from War Marshal Corinth announcing the destruction of the human fleet and the submission of their colonies to proper galactic authority. Instead, there had been only silence from the Kepler 442 system. The Council's long-range communication arrays detected no transmissions from the elite Vanguard fleet. But this was not necessarily unusual. Military commanders often maintained communication silence during operations to avoid revealing their positions to potential enemies. "Have we received any updates from the elite Vanguard fleet?" Vextar asked his chief aide during their daily briefing session. "No, sir, but the fleet is not scheduled to report back for another 10 standard days," the aide replied. War Marshal Corinth indicated that he might need time to negotiate surrender terms with the human colonies after their military forces were destroyed. Vextar nodded with satisfaction. The delay was probably due to the complexity of establishing proper governance over human territories. It would take time to organize occupation forces and install council-approved administrators throughout human space. In the outer rim territories of the galaxy, however, different stories were beginning to circulate among pirates, smugglers, and other inhabitants of the galactic underworld. These were people who lived beyond the reach of council authority and often possessed information that never reached official channels. Captain Zektharian commanded a pirate vessel that operated near the border between human and council space. His ship had been monitoring long-range sensor arrays when they detected massive energy discharges from the direction of the Kepler 442 system. The radiation signatures were consistent with large-scale fleet combat, but the aftermath seemed strangely quiet. "Boss, we are picking up debris fields drifting out of that system," reported his sensor operator, a nervous Rigelian named Crix. "The signatures match both human and council warship designs, but there are no active transponder signals from any vessels." Tharian felt a chill run down his spine as he studied the sensor readings. He had raided human colonies several times over the past few years and had learned to respect their defensive capabilities. Human crews fought with a desperation and creativity that made them extremely dangerous opponents, even when they were outgunned. "Set course away from that system," he ordered his crew. "Whatever happened there, we want no part of it. Spread the word to other independent operators. Avoid human space until we know more about what the Council fleet encountered." Similar warnings began spreading throughout the galactic criminal underground as news of the strange silence from Kepler 442 reached other pirate bases and smuggler havens. Within weeks, illegal activities in human territory dropped to almost nothing, as word spread that something terrible had happened to the elite Vanguard fleet. Trade routes that had previously carried regular traffic began avoiding human space entirely. Merchant captains who had once thought nothing of traveling through human systems now sought alternative routes that added weeks to their journeys, but kept them far from potentially dangerous encounters. On Earth, Admiral Ro Sung-hwan stood before the Human Defense Council as they reviewed the casualty reports from Kepler 442. The numbers were staggering beyond anything in human military history. Nearly 20,000 of humanity's finest soldiers and officers had died in a single engagement that lasted less than 8 hours. Was the cost worth what we achieved? Asked Council Chairman Kim Jae-sung, his voice heavy with the weight of so many lost lives. Admiral Rowe looked out through the council chamber's windows at the stars that had witnessed humanity's greatest military victory and most terrible sacrifice. Somewhere in the darkness beyond Earth's atmosphere, the galaxy continued its ancient patterns, unaware that the balance of power had shifted in ways that would reshape the future of all spacefaring civilizations. The Galactic Council sent their best warriors to destroy us, Admiral Rowe said quietly. They wanted to demonstrate their superiority and force us to accept our place as their subjects. Instead, they learned something about humanity that no hostile species has ever survived. Long enough to report to their leaders, he turned back to face the council members, his expression reflecting both grief for the fallen and determination for the future. They learned that when you threaten humanity's right to exist among the stars, you do not get to return home and war nothing.